Thank you, Serena, for that beautiful reading. What Yogananda is telling us here in this reading is that Satan is what we sometimes call that force, or Maya, delusion, what we call it often in the East, is real. And that when God decided to manifest himself from unmanifest, still, unmoving, infinite, eternal reality, he vibrated a part of himself. And from that vibration of Om, he manifested the universe. That vibration became more dense, more condensed as it went, so creating the elements, and eventually manifested the physical universe as it is manifested. And within that universe has continued that dual vibration, that movement. And he describes those movements as universal streams of magnetic power. One taking us back towards oneness with that infinite spirit. And one universal magnetic force drawing us ever deeper and deeper into the infinite number of manifested phenomena of this material world. And that each of those streams have a magnetic pull on us. And we are affected by those streams of power by our own free will. If we decide to step into one stream, it will influence us and carry us in that direction, towards greater darkness. If we step into the other, the stream guiding us towards light, that will effectively have a very strong power on us and pull us in that direction. And so it's only through our own free will that we decide which stream we're going to put our feet into. And by man's ignorance, normally he automatically gets into the stream, taking in further and further into physical manifestation and to that enjoyment and interest in and desire for, infinite manifestation of this universe. And the fact that we're all still sitting here in this room right now means that Maya has had her way with us, and that maybe some of us have been fooled to thinking that this whole life is about our enjoyment and our fun and our security. And instead of realizing our oneness with God, or our true identity as an infinite, eternal power and spirit. And so I think what happens is that we get born, and Maya is very persistent and devious and says, you have a pretty good life, but wouldn't it be so much better if you had a new house? Or wouldn't it be so much better if you had a different car? Or your children had gone to a different university? Or, you had newer clothes? Or you had a different family? And all these reasons, things come to us and said, if only I had these other things, I would be happier. And that's where Maya gets us. And, when we believe these things, and our consciousness emanates a certain vibration, and when we leave this world, when we leave our body, that consciousness has a vibration of either longing, desire, attachment, regret, or it has a consciousness of, I'm a perfect child of God. I am one with Divine Mother. God is the doer. God flows through me all the time. Everything that I've done in this life has been God doing it through me. Everything that has come to me in this life it came to me so that I could learn lessons from it, so that I could understand more clearly my oneness with God. And when we leave the body with that kind of consciousness, which is what we practice every day in meditation, what we practice every day in affirmation, in satsang, in serving one another. When we leave with that vibration, yes, we may need to come back again, but we go to a higher and higher place, a level of vibration in between lives if we have not yet been liberated. As Serena just read in this passage, Yogananda said, thoughts are universally, not individually rooted. So consciousness is out there, vibration, thoughts, universal, they're everywhere. The question is, what are we going to tune into? Again, there's these two magnetic forces, one pulling us more towards Maya, towards her drama, towards her leelas, towards her sometimes devious masks, and one pulling us ever closer to God. What are we going to tune into? You know, it's sort of like we go through life and we have, maybe we have Maya on one shoulder, an angel of light on the other shoulder. And in the West, we might say we have the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder. And one of the things that I've heard Swamiji say is that, the angel or God, he's just whispering to us, come back to me, come back to me. He's whispering to us. And the devil's just yelling really loud. You really want this, you really want that. Wouldn't that be wonderful if this? And so, we have to tune into it. Yogananda's book, Whispers from Eternity. They're whispers. God whispers to us. And so what are we going to turn into? There's stories of inmates in prison that they say, somebody has asked them, so why did you commit this crime? Or why did you commit this murder or something for somebody who normally would never, ever do something like that? And they said, I don't know, I was in this situation. It was a very difficult situation. I remember just really feeling that I wanted to dominate this other person, that I wanted to control them, that I wanted to have power over them. And suddenly this force, then all of a sudden I didn't remember anything. And this force came into me. And later I realized what had happened. And, they put themselves in that situation, in tune with that evil force that came in and was able to act through them as an instrument because they let themselves open to that power. I mean, obviously they had bad karma and lots of other delusions, but, some people, I think, do things that they didn't intend to do because we're just open to that influence, that darkening influence. And we can even ask ourselves, how many times have we said something that we didn't really mean to say? We look back and regret it and wish, how is it that I said that? Or we did something and said, what could I have been thinking? How could I have possibly done that? And then there's this phrase that we use again in the West, the devil made me do it. So we don't ever want to put ourselves into that situation where Maya or darkness can come in and use us because we're not tuning to the right station. Again, when we leave these bodies, we go to a realm, as these are all Masters' teaching, Yogananda's teachings, that we go to a realm that matches our vibration. And for many of us, that vibration is one of attuning to the Masters, of love, of light, of seeking that union with God, and of remembering that we are one with God. And we can sort of remember what that astral world feels like. We long for that vibration. That's why we're drawn to a satsang like this. This is why we're drawn to teachings, to meditation. We want to remember and rekindle that vibration that we felt in the astral world. And so many people I know with me that when I found Ananda in California many years ago, I remember feeling like, this is my home. Swamiji says after reading the autobiography, he said, this is mine. This is the vibration that I remember. So we as Guru Bhais, we remember this vibration from the astral world and we want to find it again. We want to merge with that again. And yet, where do we find ourselves? We find ourselves on this planet, sharing this planet with murderers, with thieves, with leaders of religious of religions who are telling their people to do violence to each other. We're sharing the planet with corporate politicians, with egomaniac presidents, with We're sharing with so much poverty, with so much hunger, with so much war. This is the planet that we find ourselves on. And we just said, how did we get here again? So we could be depressed about this. And we could be very, very angry that we find ourselves in such a place, or that the world is such a place. But the angels and the devas have said that it's very, very, very good karma and a great boon to have been born on this planet and to be inhabiting a physical body. Because it's only here, when in a planet of such diverse vibration, that we have the incentive for spiritual growth. We have the incentive to say, I am not going to tune in to this violence, to this anger, to this wrong being done. I am going to change myself, that in changing myself, I can help change others. Yogananda's greatest woman disciple's prayer was, Lord, change no circumstance, but change me. So let's be grateful that we have this birth. Let's be grateful that we've been given these teachings, and that with all our body, mind, soul, with all our heart's love, we try to achieve that vibration, the level of wisdom, of realization, of light, of our great gurus, that we may be channels of that light in this world, and ask ourselves instead, why was I born? What can I do? What can I do to help, and how will it help me find God? That's the question we need to ask ourselves, not why is the world this way, and why did God create these two forces of power, so that we could learn to love Him and only Him. God bless you.
These two conflicting currents of energy, of course, are always in our own consciousness. But there's one important difference between the two. Arjuna asked here, why do we do things that we know are going to harm us? We imagine that we make our own decisions, choosing a downward or an upward current of energy. But if we open ourselves to the current going downwards, at a certain point, we give up our free will. It's like we no longer have any control. We're controlled by that force. Anyone who's suffered an addiction like alcohol knows that they can't just say, oh, I'll just take a sip. That can lead down that slippery slope. We need to respect the significant power of Maya. As Sri Krishna tells us elsewhere in the Gita, from gazing grows attraction, from attraction grows desire, from frustrated desire grows anger, etc. And one way I didn't finish my point earlier. I talked about the difference between the two. The difference with the choosing the light is that we don't lose our willpower, rather our willpower gets enhanced by God's will, and we become more and more free of Maya. We become less and less bound. So until we can merge completely in that divine light. But one way that Maya works is to put the thought in our mind, I can't do this. I'm not a good meditator. I'm not a good parent. Whereas the force of light tells us, I am a child of God. And that as a child of God, I'll do my best to remember that. And our true potential is a radiant being of light. As Yoganandaji said, a saint is a sinner who never gave up. Another trick is to try to hide our mistakes from God. A friend was talking about her 4-year-old son, and she said he seldom lied, and when he did lie, he did it really badly. And one day he came to her and he said, "I didn't do nothing." And she said, "Okay, now where exactly didn't you do nothing?" And he said, "In the closet." She went in the closet. She found that her vitamin pills were taken out of their jars and all mixed up. And God also is like that. He's always there to tell us, now, where exactly was it that you didn't do nothing? But he's also there if we just open our hearts, let go of those walls. He's also there with infinite forgiveness, infinite compassion, infinite love. When a child puts his hand on the stove, it hurts him. It's not that God wants to hurt him, rather it's a warning. If I go in that direction, it's going to hurt me. It's not going to be good. It will cause me pain. And because of that pain, we withdraw. And we suffer when we do wrong. We don't suffer when we do right. Yoganandaji, once he was moving a heavy cement ornament, a wishing well in the garden, and it fell and it broke his foot. And he said, look, it caused him a great deal of pain. He said, look, when my consciousness is in my body, I feel the pain. And Swamiji said you could just see the pain on his face. But he said, now I'm going to put my mind at the spiritual eye. And the pain went away. There was no sign of pain. And so masters are able to, they don't need to suffer. They are able to go beyond pain. And they live in that joy. Yoganandaji said that evil is simply the absence of pure joy. And so clearly, the more we identify with that joy, the less and less we are touched by suffering, the less we're touched by what is happening around us. But it's important to know that a strong magnet will overtake a weak magnet. We need to be strong magnets for positivity, for the light, for love, for God. Yoganandaji said that you should keep a spiritual bodyguard whenever you go anywhere. And one disciple asked, but what about when I'm alone? And the Guru responded, but aren't I always there? He also said that any drama needs a villain. And the role of the villain is to help us love the hero. It's like we see the comparison and we choose the hero. But if it weren't for the villain, would we choose the hero quite so enthusiastically? The our murtis behind you, you know, are a very white marble. But they're also in the shade, and there's also shadows formed. And if it weren't for those shadows on the murtis, you wouldn't see the beautiful features. You would just see white. And so this duality is part of God's plan. And so that we're given the conscious choice of consciously choosing the light from our own free will. And we're free to choose that. And eventually we'll all choose to merge into that light. That's our infinite potential. Let's listen now to a beautiful song that Swami Kriyananda composed. It's sung by Ananda devotees, and the theme is Satan trying to persuade Christ to follow the path of Maya.
It's called The Temptation of Christ.